Okay, so I think I'm going to see something that isn't the way it's in which it's supposed to be, so I'm just going to laugh when I see it, okay? Okay, the emojis are not the way they're supposed to be, so can we just laugh at these emojis? Yeah. Okay, there we go. And I want you to think for a minute about someone in your life that's your biggest problem, like your thorn in your side that, you know, perhaps, and I don't want you to say it out loud. Let me just be clear, okay? But I want you to think about that someone that's a thorn in your side and sometimes really frustrates you and is hard to deal with. Now, if you got someone like that, will you raise your hand online and in the campus here? Okay, well, some of y'all aren't raising, so that's good. All right, I'll come back to that in a minute, now that you got your answer. So, oh, goodness, I'm just going to laugh. The slides are really wrong. We had some technical difficulties, so I'm just going to laugh all the way through this, because I don't know what else to do about it, as I see what that next slide is. So maybe some slides are missing. I don't know, but all the slides were uploaded. They weren't there. We tried it again this morning. They still weren't there. We tried it again, and our beloved Ryan went to piece this together. Now there's in 2 PowerPoints and all that, and so I don't know what to expect. And is that life or what? I mean, does stuff on the outside of us actually happen that we don't expect? Is there a day that goes by where just a little granular thing like that doesn't happen? I mean, it happens all the time. And I expected those slides to be in the right place. That's okay. So so I don't know to click or not, and it's just, we're going to look at emojis for a while. So many of you know, and I cannot thank this community enough, I got to go on my first sabbatical after 8 years for 2 months. And the first thing in my first intention was to slow down. Whew, I haven't felt like I'd done that in 8 years, because that was my intention going into ministerial school in 2010, was to learn how to be, because I was really good at knowing how to do. And so for 3.5 years, I focused on learning how to be. And so it was this memory inside of me come the 1st of June, and I went, there it is. I'm going to slow down and just be. And, yeah, let me just look ahead here. I have no idea. I think there's some slides missing, so now I know. Okay. And I listen to Oprah's Super Soul Sunday when I'm driving around. When I'm driving around, I like to really bring positive things into my life. And I'd heard Oprah do a podcast on the Untethered soul. And I had read this book by Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, many, many years ago, to become a licensed spiritual coach several years ago. That was part of the curriculum, was to read this. A few years ago in this community, we had this as a book of the month, and I read it again. And I heard him on this podcast, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then right before I left for sabbatical, Oprah had Michael Singer back to talk about his latest book called Living the Untethered Soul. And I heard that conversation. And when I heard that conversation, and I didn't know he had another book, I said, I know the 2 books I'm taking with me on sabbatical to do my spiritual practice with. I set the intention, I put them in my suitcase, and off I went. And so I started with the Untethered Soul, and I read a chapter a day in the morning. I journaled, and then whatever I read, however many pages in that chapter, I would practice what I had read and had started to take in from him. And And so I was practicing that, and I might practice that for 2 to 3 days. I just sort of went with it the way it felt, the pace that I needed to be with it. And then when I felt like, okay, I think I'm ready for another chapter, I did another chapter. And it became clear to me after a couple of chapters and a few days with myself, by myself, that I don't know what your answer was to my question that I had a little bit ago, but the biggest someone and the problem in my life is me. That's the biggest problem I have, is me. Look at the emojis. And imagine the slide is a person standing in front of themselves. Doesn't matter. But, it's like, So in the Untethered Soul, what he says is, in case you haven't noticed, you have a mental dialogue going on inside your head that never stops. You ever notice that? Mm-hmm. And what Michael Singer calls this is your inner roommate. You got an inner roommate, and it just is living with you all the time, and it never stops. And both myself and Petra have talked about this inner roommate in the past. In fact, one of the largest views of a talk on our YouTube channel, CSLDallas YouTube channel, is The Voice Inside My Head. It's a really good talk. And so all these years on this planet, my roommate has not left me yet. Has yours? So it's not about attempting to get rid of my roommate and evict them. It's about, how do I live with my roommate? How do I be with my roommate? Okay. So in chapter 2, what Michael Singer says is, and it's called Your Inner Roommate, he says your inner growth is completely dependent upon the realization that the only way to find peace and contentment is to stop thinking about yourself. Isn't that interesting? You're ready to grow when you finally realize that the I, who is always talking inside, will never be content. It always has a problem with something. Just see if this sounds familiar, right? And he says the bottom line is, you'll never be free of problems until you are free from the part within that has so many problems. And so when a problem is disturbing you, don't ask, what should I do about it? Rather ask, what part of me is being disturbed by this? Okay, that's a powerful question. What part of me is being disturbed by this, whatever's going on, right? And so if you want to achieve peace in face of your problems, he says you must understand why you perceive a particular situation as a problem. If you're feeling jealousy, instead of trying to see how you can protect yourself, just ask, what part of me is jealous? That will cause you to look inside. Once you clearly see the disturbed part, so first thing is, what part of me is disturbed? Then the next thing is, who is it that sees this? So this part of me sees that I'm disturbed. Who is it that sees that? Stay with me. Who notices this inner disturbance? So the very fact that you can see the disturbance means that you are not it. And so the process of this very thing that he's talking about is the subject-object relationship. There's the subject, there's an object, and there's a relationship between the two. And you've probably heard that it's called the witness, right? The witness. The act of maintaining objective awareness of the inner problem is always better than losing yourself in the outer situation that's going on. I don't know about you, but I do find myself losing myself in that problem and in that situation outside of me that is going on. And the interesting thing is the universe brought a situation this morning right here called technology that was happening outside of me, and no slides and all of that, and I got to practice it right before I got to tell you. Funny how that happens, right?
Thank God.
Thank God. Okay, so since you don't have slides to look at, I'm going to continue. To attain true inner freedom, you must be able to objectively watch your problem instead of being lost in them. That's what he's saying. Just step back, be the witness, take an objective stance to the subject that's going on called problem, right? And everyone knows that you can't deal well with the situation if you're getting anxious, scared, or angry about it. How do you do when you get really angry right in the moment about something that's happening and you're way off center? How's that work out for you? Not too great. And probably not for the situation, the problem, or the person in front of you if there is one, right? So, when you get clear enough, he says, you will realize that the real problem is that there is something inside of you that can have a problem with almost anything. Almost anything. And so the first step is to deal with the part of you inside. And this involves a change from outer solution consciousness to inner solution consciousness. Okay, so many of us deal in outer solution consciousness, and we want to begin to move to inner solution consciousness. And you can break the habit of thinking that a solution to your problem is to rearrange the outside. Problem: it's really hot today in Texas. How am I really going to do? Am I going to do well about trying to rearrange the weather? Not too great, right? So there really is a way to let go of the part of you that sees everything as a problem. And there's a part of your being that can detach yourself from your own melodrama that's going on. There is a part of you, inside of you, that can watch yourself be jealous or be angry or be anxious or be worried, to be happy, to be joyful. Notice it's not just, quote, what we would deem negative emotions, right? And you don't have to think about it, and you don't have to analyze it. So the first step is start by watching. Just like, you know how it is when we watch TV or watch a movie? We're watching it. You know, it's not us. We're observing it. But what happens is, what he's saying and inviting us to begin to start to practice is, have you ever noticed when you watch a really good movie that you get fully engrossed in it? You have no idea what else is going on. Have you ever had a partner that goes, hello, hello, and you're so lost in the movie? That tends to be what happens with us on the outside stuff. But we could be the witness, the observer, watching us watch the movie. And to be aware that you're aware of the roommate. Okay, that's the first step, to be aware and to witness. The second step, he says, which could be very interesting, and I invite you to do this. After you start practicing the first step, the second step is this roommate that lives inside of you, this voice inside your head that really is not has a problem with just about everything. Personify this roommate externally. Come on, roommate, how you doing? I see you, right? It has a body of its own. Yeah, you're dressed pretty nice today. Well, you're a little sloppy over here, but, personify. Start to personify. And as this person that's outside of you now is walking around, don't attempt to make it stop talking. Just let it go. Talk, 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 talk. Oh, the weather's so hot. Oh my God, it's another day. This is like the 4th month in a row, whatever it's going to say, right? And just give it a body and make it a person outside of you, and they go with you everywhere. Just, there it is. That person's just walking around with you. And so as I started to practice this on my sabbatical, wow, I did this and I knew I was in trouble. I wanted freedom for my roommate, big time. I really got clear on it's time for me to free myself from myself. And I've said this phrase in many situations in my life, and especially when I hit a new decade, and I say, wherever I go, there I am. Man, I could end a relationship because the problem's with that person for sure. And then I get in another relationship, and wherever I go, there I am. Showing up the same way. But the good news is, and when I am starting to practice this, I figured out that my will is stronger than the habit of listening to that voice. And so is yours. Because there's nothing that you can't do. Your will is supreme over all of this. I think that's why the phrase in the sacred text called the Bible says, "Thy will be done." I think we have a tendency to think it's, "Thy will, whatever in the sky and in the heavens, be done." No, thy will be done on the inside of me as it is on the outside of me. Or flip it around into a power statement. Thy will be done on the outside of me as it is on the inside of me. And the one thing I have control over and have my will over is on the inside of me. Y'all got this? You don't have to have it yet. You just have to have the concept. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thy will be done on the outside of me as it is on the in. Because what do we know and what do we teach? So within, so without. We got it backwards for how long? And he's brilliant in this, right? Now, I want to prove to you that you can do this. You ready? I want you to think marshmallow right now. Marshmallow. Think marshmallow. Again, marshmallow. You can even say it out loud if it helps. I want you to do it 5 times. Marshmallow, 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 marshmallow. You willed that marshmallow. I didn't. I had nothing to do with it, nor did anybody else around you. Look how easy that was. Right there. Marshmallow, 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 marshmallow. On the inside, it's good old fluffy stuff. There's your will right there. So if you're like me, as it is right now, your life may not be your own. It probably belongs to the inner roommate that's with us all the daggum time. Ugh. Could you at least straighten yourself up over there? Michael Singer calls this a psyche, right? And this is your life. And I don't care what's happened before this moment, you get to reclaim it. Take your life back now. Become free, what he calls living untethered. So, after reading and practicing the untethered soul, I noticed that I was more peaceful and calm and comfortable on the inside of Karen. I was like, wow, I actually really am enjoying hanging out with her. And I'm an extrovert, and I spent 2 months by myself. And by the end of those 2 months, I enjoyed it so much, I wasn't just like, come on, Petra, I miss you, come up here, come on, I was so, that only took, at that time, 56 years. I've had a birthday since then, right? And it's like, wow. So I moved into this book, Living Untethered, right? Now, it's very similar in the information and the practices of the untethered soul. It's just presented in a very different way. So you get to choose, because it is your life. You can take control of it, whether you start with the untethered soul or you just go right here. I found that very helpful to start with there, but this one's in itty-bitty bites of chapters, and really, I call it a little bit more simplified language, and because I grounded in that, man, did I'm rereading this now. So, you could start with this one if you want to. And what he's showing us, as many, many master teachers have, many different books have, is that the entire spiritual journey back to the seat of the self, and that's the big S, self. I didn't say the other word. I said big S. Self is not about finding yourself. It's about realizing you are the self, right? And again, a lot of us over our life attempt to find people, places, and things in the outside world that will unfold in a way that makes us more comfortable inside. And we've got it backwards. And so instead of trying to use the outside to fix the inside, it's much better to find out why it's not nice and peaceful and comfortable on the inside of us. Now, I'm just going to give a true confession. I've talked to a lot of people in our community and across our colleagues and people like that I know. I talked to a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Kathy Hearn, who was our organization, our international organization spiritual leader. And I called her up and I said, I need to have a little spiritual coaching session because something on the outside of me, actually it was someone on the outside of me, was just eating me alive on the inside. And so I needed help. And when we were done, I said, yeah, most of the time it's not comfortable inside of me. It's just not a pleasant environment. And she said, Karen, I don't think there's anyone that would ever believe when they see you and how you walk in the world that that's true about you. I want you to know that that has been true about me until this sabbatical. So if I can do it, y'all can do it. And so he talks about, in chapter 4, he calls it the 3-ring circus. He says on chapter 4, he says, I'm in here, I'm conscious of what I'm conscious of it. Wait, I'm in here, I'm conscious. And what I'm conscious of is that it's not always so nice in here. And that's what I became conscious of. And so this book is an exploration of the self and the power of acceptance. Not necessarily an acceptance of ourself, but the acceptance of what's going on outside of us at every single moment of our life. And he says that there's only three things that we experience. He says we experience the outside world coming through our senses. Right now you're experiencing me and all this stuff around me, and it's coming through your senses, right? Your sight, your hearing right now. If you pay attention to your saliva glands, now you're experiencing that, your taste, things like that. So we're experiencing things, they're coming through our senses. That's number one. Number two, we also have thoughts in there, right? Good old roommate, we have some thoughts. And we experience our feelings and emotions. Those are the three things that are happening. So as we notice our surroundings coming in through our senses from the outside, we're also having thoughts passing through our mind on the inside. And then, because these things are happening, doesn't emotion start to arise in our heart space, our heart chakra, and that creates feelings of discomfort or comfort? True? Yeah, this is sort of how we're made up here. And so all of these things can happen simultaneously at the same time, and these three inner experiences are the arena in which your consciousness plays the game of life here on planet Earth. Isn't it fun? So what we're wanting to do now, and what I'm inviting you to do, is to begin to consciously, not unconsciously, but consciously begin to experience these three objects. And consciousness is a profound miracle. Consciousness knows that it knows. That's consciousness. It knows that it knows. And when consciousness is simply experiencing reality as the image in the mind, it equals being in the present moment. Just be here now, right? Be here now. That's why wildlife photography has become my great spiritual practice, because it invites me to be here now and take in the senses, observe the thoughts that are running through me, and the feelings and emotions in the moment. And consciously do that. Be here now. So, I bet you have an example. Taking in a sunset. Seeing something beautiful. Whatever, those moments where it's like, oh my gosh, all of life just expands and opens up and there's nothing else going on but said sunset, right? And like tears might come in awe of the beauty of the sunset. That's consciously experiencing those three things. So, we're moving towards having one pointed consciousness to experience that sunset, nothing else. Experience this conversation that you're having with someone right now. Experience the meal that you're taking in. How many times, I don't know about you, but I rush through a meal sometimes. I don't even experience it. And while I'm eating, I'm thinking about the 4 things I got to do when I stop eating. And then the roommate gets busy and thinks about and talks about, well, you're not going to be able to get to that today, and you didn't really cook this meal well, and, see what happens? And then I'm not even enjoying the meal. And if there's someone in front of me, like Petra, and she's wanting my full attention, I'm not even in the arena. And she notices that, and that doesn't go well. So I'm learning how to breathe. I'm noticing how to be the witness, to back up and go, oh, look, you're not even tasting the meal. You're not even here with your beloved. You're on the 5 things that you need to do when this is done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So he has a lot of techniques in this book. I'm only going to quickly touch on 3 of them. But I want you to know what the 3 are, because I really want you to dive into these 2 books. And by the way, there's a way in which you can use our affiliate link for CSLDallas and purchase these books, and CSLDallas will get something, which is really good. So I'm going to read from Techniques for Freeing Yourself. Once your intent is to use every moment of your life to free yourself, the question becomes how to do that. Believe it or not, your sincere intent to be free is more important than any technique you could use. So make the intention that you're going to free yourself from yourself. That's a powerful intention. The first technique, you might have heard about it before. It's called positive thinking. Have you heard about that? Only one person? Yeah. I know, you've heard of it. Yogananda, who Ernest Holmes deeply studied, would say this all the time. He said he used to teach that every time you have a negative thought, replace it with a positive one. And yet I look at my life and I go, how often do I really do that? Just yesterday, I said something, and my beloved replaced what I said with a positive thought. I was so happy. I said, I needed that. You know, I'm talking about this tomorrow. You just did it for me. But I look at my life, how many times do I do that? Well, I want it to be more and more and more and more and more. So there are two types of thoughts we have. There's the thoughts we create willfully. Ready? Marshmallow. Very good. And so we're purposefully creating marshmallows, positive thoughts about the situation. Now we have automatic thoughts. And so we want to start noticing those automatic thoughts from that psyche that really is not us anyway. It's that wonderful roommate that we live with. You're starting to get this. It's all coming together, right? And we don't want to fight the thoughts. We don't want to try to make the thoughts disappear. We want to what? We want to replace the thought with a positive thought. Over and over and over again. And over time, that habit will be now the new one. Replace the negative thought with the positive thought. Ready? 5 times. Marshmallow, 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 marshmallow. Come on, y'all. Marshmallow. Catch up with me. Here we go. Number 2. I think you've heard of this before. It's called a mantra. Train your mind to repeat a simple word or phrase over and over and over again until it gets stuck in your head. So that when not to get rid of them, but when the habitual thought comes up, you grab a mantra. Boom, right there. Train your mind to repeat that simple word or thought over and over again until it sticks, right? I use this all the time. Oh my gosh, when I'm triggered and I close down and I want to fight or flight and I can feel it, and that's the first thing I start noticing on the inside of my body, and I go, where's my mantra? I'm one with God, I'm totally healthy. I get triggered about everybody else being unhealthy since I was diagnosed with cancer 8 years ago. When that word comes up, I can feel it and I go, I'm one with God, I'm totally healthy. I'm one with God, I'm totally healthy. I'm one with God, I'm totally healthy. Here's another one. Everybody, many people in this community knows this. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. I use that when we go hiking or someone outside of me is irritating me and I have walked away and closed down. I go, there's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. Because that inner roommate's about to get really messy and loud. I started this on a hike that we took. It was a 7-hour hike in New Hampshire. Monadnock Mountain. We thought it was a 3. It was 7. And I needed that so badly. And I needed another one that I picked up on that hike. And it was, I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm alive. I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm alive. I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm alive. Okay? So, and my favorite one, you want to shift a situation, a circumstance, grab an idea, whatever, whoosh, out of nowhere. I am consciousness. Woo, that's my favorite, thanks to Ernest Holmes. I am consciousness. And he says to do this every day, pick a mantra for 15 minutes. It's powerful. Okay, the third one is the witness consciousness. And it's deeper than the others, he says, and it doesn't require working with the mind. It's just noticing that you are noticing what the mind is doing. and have that witness consciousness and be truly aware of what's in front of you right now. Sunset, delicious meal, conversation, Karen's talking. Is anybody thinking she's talking too long? Be here now, right? It's like, just be here now. So our whole theme this month is about reimagining self-expression and learning and growing. And I'm so grateful that I had 2 months to expand and learn and grow myself on the inside of me. Because life is never intended to stay in one place. Nature doesn't let us stay in one place too long, right? We are meant to expand and grow and to know that I am consciousness, that you are absolutely consciousness expressed, and that you do not have to live with your roommate the way you currently are. I'm not saying you can evict that roommate, but you don't have to live with the roommate as you currently are or have been. Just like moving the interior furniture in your home, like you could go home today and move all your furniture and everything would be different in the same home, wouldn't it? That's what we want to do. We can adjust and move what you're experiencing on the interior of you. And I want to tell you, and I don't get a penny for saying it, Michael Singer's not my uncle. Get these books. Get one of them, use them, along with our spiritual teachings and principles of the science and mind, and I know you too are going to live untethered and be free. And so it is.